In today's episode of the Business of You podcast, we've got the incredible Angeline Hennessey-Thompson. Angeline is a psychotherapist and author and founder of the Living Without Limits podcast. Drawing on years of her clinical experience and her own personal journey, she helps people understand themselves more clearly, break long-held patterns, and create meaningful change through her 6 pillars framework. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about the edge of change. So we're going to be talking about why knowing what to do isn't always enough. We're going to talk about self-sabotage. We're going to be talking about why growth can feel so uncomfortable. We touch on self-trust, belief, identity, and how to navigate the space between who you are now and who you're becoming. I hope you love the episode. If you do, make sure to drop us a like, leave us a comment, and go get stuck in. Hi, Angeline. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Business of You podcast. As you know, this season, all of our episodes are around edges, meeting edges in life and in business. And with each guest, I have a little look at what you do, at your magic, and we kind of come up with a theme of the episode. So we've decided today to talk about the edge of change, because I think that is a topic that both of us love talking about. It appears a lot in our work, and it's definitely, I think, something that we've connected with, in the time that we've known each other. So let's just start with setting the scene a little bit of what kind of change do you think a lot of business owners are faced with? From starting a business, what are the different kind of elements of change that you see your clients coming to you or you've experienced personally as a business owner?
I think it can be, to start with, just so daunting, really. Where do I start with this? Sometimes people come from a perspective of a new idea, or they may have worked in a particular job and now they want to do that as their own business. So I guess it's a change because it's going to look different, and as well, it's quite vulnerable.
Yeah.
You and I have talked about that before. The prospect of change of any description, just if we want to make any change at all.
Why do you think we find it such a difficult thing? Why do you think, as humans, we find change so difficult?
There's safety in the familiar, so we will always gravitate towards the certainty that where we can get certainty, we'll hold on to it. And that's why some people stay stuck, sometimes in a job that they know that they're not really happy in, and they kind of sometimes think that they would like to do something else, but the change is the prospect of the change is too much. Maybe they've been in that job a long time. Yeah, we're creatures of habit, and we'll stay in safety often. It's really when I think that we all have a desire within us to grow. Whether we like it or not. Yeah.
Do you think that's a natural human thing?
I do,
growth?
Growth, human growth. I really do. And I think that's why it doesn't feel good if we do stay stuck in the familiar. And it kind of speaks a little bit to abusive relationships as well. I'm thinking as a kind of an example. Yeah. That when you're in the middle of it, it doesn't always seem as bad, and there'll be good times within it as well. Yeah. There'll be a part of you that probably knows it's not great, and part of you that wants something different. Yeah. Similar to a career change, or like I say, any change of any description, we sometimes are attracted to the familiar, even if it's not good for us, or it's not really ticking our boxes, and growth feels good, but there's usually a few steps that have to precede that, which is really uncomfortable.
It's like growth feels good after it's happened. Yeah. Right? It doesn't always feel good while you're in it. Yeah. And I think also on that topic, I think it's quite interesting that, and I talk a lot about this with my clients, especially in business, is it's almost like we need evidence that it's going to work, right? In order to be willing to create the change. It feels easier, I think we tell ourselves, it's easier if I definitely know it's going to work. because change feels risky, doesn't it? You know, and people have different tolerances of risk and risk they're willing to take. So what's your kind of experience of that, or conversations you have with the clients around this kind of like the need for evidence before creating change? Because 9 times out of 10 you're not going to get it, are you? That evidence isn't always there.
No, not at all. You don't have anything to go on. You've got no precedent, you've got no data. So, you know, my own personal journey, I guess, and what I come across in working with other people is, you know, I had a secure job in the NHS. Yeah. And it's a good job, you know, regular salary every month, pension and secure. All the rest of it, you know what you're in for, so better the devil you know sometimes, and all that kind of thing. You've got colleagues and you've got safety in the people around you.
And the routine as well.
You're protected in the NHS in certain ways. You know, clients don't have direct access to you, and just different things, small details like that, really. So there's the certainty and we're creatures of habit, so the daily. So there's all kinds of fears then that will come in if we are feeling like we want to start our own business for whatever reason. Yeah. We've got no confidence really as to what that's going to look like. Are we going to succeed? Are we going to look silly? Is this going to be the worst thing I've ever done? That's
the risk, isn't it? All those risks are at play.
You know, because other people might look from the outside and say, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
You know,
why would you do that? Yeah.
You're going to leave a job that you've worked hard for, in a way, you know, with all your training and all the experience that you've gained, and now you've kind of settled, got to where, you know, a reasonable position, really, a reasonable salary and all the rest of it. So from an outside perspective, it kind of doesn't make sense as well. So you're kind of like, okay, why am I doing this? There's so many reasons not to do it. The fears that are behind that, and it's confidence, it's financial security, it's external validation. You know, who agrees with me? Nobody. It's all of the things that help us feel a bit safer in our decisions. So it's scary.
Yeah, and I think it's a funny thing. Again, I talk about this with my clients a lot around comfort zones, and we get really good at sitting inside our comfort zone, don't we? Because, like you said, it's familiar. We know what to expect. We know the parameters. We know the boundaries. But I think it comes back to that point. You gave the example of domestic abuse. I think sometimes I say to my clients, but how comfortable is it really? And they'll say, oh, you know, I don't want to put myself out there. I don't want to apply for this. I don't want to put my prices up. That feels uncomfortable. And I'll say, okay, you want to stay comfortable, fine. But then I'll say, but how comfortable is it really? You're comfortable, but you're not earning enough money to pay your bills. You're not feeling good because people are, you know, taking advantage or pressing on your boundaries. So I think when we really start to look at it, we often realise that what we think is comfortable actually isn't that comfortable. But like you say, we've learned to accept it.
Yeah, it's familiar.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about what was modelled for us as well growing up. We're influenced by the stories that we, you know, an accumulation of our perceptions. Yeah. And I know that we've talked about this before, the identity shift that you talk a lot about in your work. It's how we see ourselves and who we believe ourselves to be. Yeah. So if it's familiar that you'd go and do a 9 to 5, you know, that's what you do. You come home. Yeah. And that's life. That's the picture of life, and our culture is certainly. There's a lot around that's modelled for us. It's about, can I see myself as a person who is a successful business owner? Because I've never seen myself as that. Yeah. So how do you gain the confidence or the belief or the trust in yourself first to go from A to Z, really? Yeah. Which is where we want to be, because we don't want to do go through the uncomfortable, all the scary bits in between.
We just want the result all the time.
Yeah, so it's about how we see ourselves as well, and those core beliefs. Are we good enough? You know, that imposter syndrome. That's I think it's something like 75-80% of us.
Oh, massive!
Experience imposter syndrome at some point, some more than others, obviously. So there's all these things that it's going against us, really.
I remember a couple of years ago, I was in a mindset session with a group of people, and most of them were women. And I asked the question about what's your biggest limiting belief, and every single person in that room was the same: I'm not good enough. And it broke my heart. It absolutely broke my heart. And it's a big reason why I do the work, that I do, because it's so sad, isn't it, that there's so many people still moving through life with that hanging over their head. So we've talked a little bit about why people stay in old patterns of behaviour around, it's familiar, it's safe, it's comfortable. Let's talk a little bit let's dive into your magic here, your knowledge around the psychology of self-sabotage and what that looks like, why we do it. Let's talk a little bit about that, because I think it's a really important topic that comes up a lot, for both of our clients in life and business, but it's probably something that we just don't talk about enough.
Absolutely. Well, self-sabotage is a safety behaviour, ultimately. So it's when we get to that point where we think, oh, this is subconscious. We don't. Yeah. This is not
not aware it's happening.
We're not aware. But we'll always use different coping strategies, thought patterns, to rebound back to a safe place. Yeah. We will have developed those safety behaviours over time, and they will have worked really well for us at one point.
Yeah, and sometimes they don't always make sense, do they?
Not in our current situation. When we really think about it, they're not as helpful as they I say, they probably were really helpful
at some point.
Yeah. Whether it be in a tricky relationship, or whether it be, when we were young and we don't have to have had a terrible childhood. There can be all kinds of experiences.
They're survival behaviours a lot of the time, aren't they?
Absolutely. Yeah. So self-sabotage is when we feel, so say if we're in a relationship and it's going really well, but our script, if you like, our story is that people let us down.
Yeah.
We can't rely on anybody else. Ultimately, I have to rely on myself, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You become very familiar with that. That's safe, and that's the way that you function in life and in relationships, because that way you don't have to go through the disappointment of somebody letting you down.
Yeah.
And you will have experienced that at some point. There'll be a very good reason why you had to develop that. So that's a good example where you could be in a great relationship, and then you get to the point where it becomes quite scary, because it's like, this person, I don't know what to do with this.
Yeah, this isn't going how it normally goes, kind of thing.
I either you kind of got a choice whether to trust this person and be vulnerable and go against your safety behaviour.
Yeah.
Which is quite hardwired. Yeah. And so that's why it's really difficult to change it. It's not an overnight process. Yeah. So we're going to say things like, we'll ultimately think, we won't really trust it. We'll think, but what are they up to? Yeah. Yeah, but when is the real you going to come out, Yeah. Or it's going to come, you're going to let me down, you're going to hurt me.
Even if there's not the evidence there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so you might then change by, it's called avoidant attachment sometimes, in this case, where you'll literally avoid attachment or avoid that vulnerable that real connection. So there's a lot of people that are in relationships that aren't deeply connected, in the vulnerable sense, where you've really put your trust in that person. And so you'll kind of maybe function on a level of, this is okay, but I'll kind of keep you at arm's length a little bit. We're in this relationship, it's okay. I know how to do this. This is how I've navigated people all my life.
And it's always kept me safe.
Yeah, that you're kind of at arm's length.
Yeah.
You know, obviously a very important person, but you know, I had a conversation with a client this week actually, where they were talking about this very thing, that they kept people at arm's length emotionally. So you're kind of, you know, you've heard of people building walls around them.
Yeah.
That's a common term to use. The only downside to that is it works well for a while.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we crave human connection. And our friend Brené Brown, I know that we both love her work.
Yeah.
That's a basic human need. We crave that deep human connection where we're really seen, we're really heard, we're really understood. Yeah. People, we show all of our messy bits.
Yes, we like to call it, don't we? Yeah.
Yeah. Where when we show those bits and the person still loves us, that's the ultimate.
Yeah.
And if we don't show those bits, how can we truly feel loved fully? Because we're just presenting a version of ourselves that we feel is acceptable. Yeah. And there's many other different reasons why we don't always present all parts of ourselves. Yeah. There's loads of, you know, and it's down to feeling ashamed of some deeper parts or whatever, things that we've done in the past and all that kind of thing. So the self-sabotage comes in when we get scared. Yeah. And if it becomes difficult because the other partner, say, is sensing that you're pushing them away a bit or keeping them out or, you know, not telling them how you're feeling and all that kind of thing, the other person's going to feel locked out. Yeah. So that's when the difficulty comes in, because they are then going to start to push on that a little bit, and you're going to be like, oh, you know, well,
I feel like it's almost a little bit like confirmation bias, self-sabotage, is that we believe a certain thing, that things have to go a certain way in order to keep us safe. And then when that evidence isn't coming, so say, like you say, you're in a relationship and that person isn't doing the things that you're expecting, it's almost like you start to create environments so that it will happen, so that you can confirm to yourself. And that's what you're saying it's about. It's almost kind of like picking arguments in order to have the argument, because then that is the behaviour that you recognise. That's the self-sabotage bit, isn't it? Is things can be going really, really well, but then we're not used to this, so we self-sabotage. We do things or say things or, you know, exhibit behaviours or take actions almost to make it trip itself up, so that we can prove to ourselves that we were right.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Like self-sabotage. I see it happen. What kind of behaviours have you experienced potentially as a business owner, or see business owners with self-sabotage? Like, how do you think a lot of business owners are self-sabotaging themselves?
I think it's any version of when they get to that scary point where
when change
it's
is
kind
near.
of do or die.
Yeah.
Sometimes in small businesses it's do or die, where we have to take a chance on and trust ourselves. Maybe we're doing something a bit different or something that not everybody agrees with, and so at that point we kind of have to double down on that trust in ourselves. And I know that you talk about this in your work, or we start to find reasons ourselves why it's not going to work, and why I can't do that. You know, that other people can do that, but I can't. So you start to revert to those core beliefs, those beliefs that we have about ourselves, and make reasons why
find the
this
evidence.
Can't work, or that external factor, that I can't do it because of this person, or that I haven't got the money, or you know, the conditions aren't there that I can do it.
And like you say, I think this all happens quite subconsciously. So I think it's really important for our listeners to maybe think about how they can recognise these behaviours, or where they might be doing this in their business, and now they've kind of almost got an identity to give that, of like, okay, this might be where I'm self-sabotaging, you know. So, you know, listening to where they're finding themselves say things like, I can't because... you know, where you're looking for that, you know, evidence. So we've talked a little bit about why people stay in old patterns. Why do you think growth feels so uncomfortable. Like, what words come to your mind when you're talking about growth or change in people?
It's stepping out of your comfort zone, really. It's growth is movement. It stirs emotion.
Yeah.
You know, that it's in motion.
Yeah.
So I think it triggers our sensitivities, if you like.
Yeah.
It tends to speak to our vulnerabilities, the things that we feel we're not good at, or you know, it might highlight some of our weaknesses. We might feel a bit exposed, because growth is about looking at where we're at and recognising the things that we do want to work on.
Yeah.
Taking ownership of where we are and how we are taking accountability for, you know, what are our hopes, what are our fears.
Yeah.
Looking inside, which it's easier to look outside. It's easier to look at our circumstances. We have a comparison culture.
Yeah.
You know, we get...
Especially with social media,
in,
which heightens that so much more, doesn't it?
Yeah, it takes us away from personal growth, really.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of noise and focus on the external factors, whether it be other people or our circumstances, how things should be, which is going to be different for everyone, you know. So I think that growth is difficult because it's about looking inward, and that's harder to do.
Yeah.
That's not glamorous. That's not a lot of fun, and we don't get a dopamine hit from that.
Yes.
We're chasing the dopamine hits, the online, you know, cute doggy videos. It's terrible. I'm terrible. I have to stop it. We only ever do anything if we feel we're going to be happier in the having or the doing of it. We want that dopamine hit.
Let's talk about that. I think that's a really interesting point around change. So change, us creating change, but also the change in creating change. So if we think back even 50, 60 years, if we think about the change makers of the world, the people who have created change, so now not just thinking about change we want to create for ourselves, but impact, you know, change that we want to create in the world for other people. Like you say, that isn't an instantaneous thing. So what do you think the rise of social media, obviously there's so many benefits to it, but like you say, it's quite a detrimental thing that it's had on human processing, because it's giving us that need for immediate resolution and immediate kind of dopamine hits, whereas actually real change isn't always created very quickly. So what's your kind of thoughts around that, around the real change makers of the world? So what kind of qualities do you think these people have that maybe we've lost as a society, or we've lost as a, you know, a generation of people that now have access to everything on a little brick?
Absolutely. So if you look at the people in history, a lot of them have gone through very challenging situations themselves.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about Oprah Winfrey. I'm thinking about Maya Angelou.
Yeah.
You know, psychology. Some of the good psychologists, Carl Rogers, Wayne Dyer. They all had challenging early experiences, and so I think there's a common theme that these people are empathic.
Yeah.
They know what it feels like to feel alone. Worthless in some situations, that they're small, insignificant, no value, you know, all those things. And I think that if you listen to the core of their messages, really, Brené Brown, you know, with her messages on human connection, they know what it's like to feel alone and disconnected, unloved, you know, potentially in some cases, and they don't want anybody else to feel that way. They go through an introspection, where, you know, a lot of them have a spiritual element to them, I'm not a religious person, but I certainly know that there's a higher power out there, and the universe conspires in our favour. I really believe that. There's been so many examples of that. So I think that's another common theme. And I could talk about a study actually but I'll just touch on it briefly. I don't want to go on because I'll forget what I'm talking about. But the area of the brain that if you scan the brain, you can see there's a difference in a depressed brain, in a healthy, functioning, a non-depressed brain. Where the Jewish cap sits, which is interesting in and of itself. This was a study. It's in Lisa Miller's book, The Psychology of Spirituality. Okay. You'd love it.
Yeah,
it's a
sounds
really
right up my street.
And, when we're walking down the street and we may have been in a job interview, we didn't get the job.
Yeah.
But we see a glistening in the trees or a pattern in the clouds where we just get a knowing of everything's going to be okay. Yeah,
we take meaning from it.
Yeah. When they measure the brain, when that happens, the same part of the brain that's depressed lights up.
Wow.
So there's so many studies that prove that, if we do have some kind of spiritual element to us, then we are more likely to be happier.
And I think you've literally led into what I was just going to say to you. So coming back to the conversation around change makers and people who have created a lot of change in our society, Martin Luther King, if we think about all those incredible people, it's because it's about something bigger than them. And I think that's the thing, is like creating change for ourselves is one thing, and we come up against these emotions of fear and vulnerability and feeling exposed and questioning who we are and our identity, and we'll battle with that, and we'll either win or we won't, and we'll grow or we won't. But I think all of the real change makers of the world, it's almost like it's become out of body. It's become about something bigger than them, which I think ties into what you were just saying there about when you believe that there is something bigger than you.
Yeah.
It's almost like it gives you higher purpose or more reason. So it's almost like puts the change into perspective, because the change isn't just about you. And I think this is where there's synergy in our work of we love what we do, right? And we were just talking about this, about it serves a purpose for us individually, but both of our work is around a higher purpose and creating impact. So I think there's real beauty in thinking about that, of if you want to create change. And I say to my clients all the time, if you believe that there's a problem, if you're not part of the change and you're not part of the contribution to making a change, you're still part of the problem. And I think there's real power in owning that for ourselves as well, is that if we want to create change in our lives and we're not the ones changing our behaviours or thought patterns or doing the work, then we're still part of the problem, aren't we?
I love talking about this, because this is what I call integrity-based power.
Okay.
Because it's when our business or whatever we're doing, whether it be, we're growing a charity or some kind of cause or whatever we're doing, when it's born out of a place of something that's within us, and, like I was saying, with some of the changes that have gone before us, they are coming from a place of experience and real going through, they know what it feels like, they want to make it better and all the rest of it. So when it comes from that place, often the businesses that are born out of there, rather than how can I make money, what's the latest fashion or what's the latest
trends that I can hop on, and
that somebody's on TikTok or Instagram saying just click here and do a comment or whatever, and whatever, there's loads of that out there, isn't there? When a business is born out of your integrity, your experience, what you're passionate about,
your beliefs,
and like you say, the things that you want to change, and want other people to find out what you've learned along your journey, their version of that. Because everybody's going to have a different version of that. So growth is not the easy route. It's not the quick fix.
No.
Again, social media, do this 6-week program, do that, and your life will be wonderful. Well, growth is a daily practice. It's an introspection. It's looking at you. It's looking at what your patterns are, what's holding you back, what are your fears, what are your hopes. Regardless in a way, not regardless of those around you, because we've obviously got responsibilities within our families. But I think that ultimately, when it's to do with our work and what we want to do, it has to be based on that essence of who we are. And you talk a lot about that's the difference in the skills bootcamp, where how you talk to business owners. Yeah. So I think that growth is difficult because it's harder. It's a daily practice, and it's a life. Yeah. It's a lifestyle.
Yeah. And I think in the type of businesses that we run, and I particularly, my ideal clients are people who are running these kinds of businesses where they're not just jobs, they're businesses that they truly are passionate about, and they're creating impact and creating change. I think that what I teach in the skills bootcamps, especially around marketing and content, is I think there's a big difference between learning how to market for attention versus learning how to market for recognition. And I think they're two very different things. So if I think about the work and the legacy, that I want to create and I want to do, I want to write a book, not because I can have an amazing launch party and get loads of Instagram content and get lots of attention. I want to write a book that women are picking up in 15 years and referencing in their masters. And that's, neither is right or wrong, right? But I think as a business owner, you and a person, you have to get clear on what matters to you and what your values are. Because you get to do business differently depending on that, So if you want to build a business that is marketable and you just want loads of attention, great. Learn how to do that. But if you want to build a business that's based on recognition and legacy and being known for depth and mastery, then recognition is the way to do that. And that's built on trust. That's built on depth. That's built on substance. That's built on passion, conviction, showing up, So I think again, we love nuance, don't we? This is something we love, of picking apart these things. So
I was thinking about connection.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking about when you were talking there, that when we've talked about this before, when a business idea won't leave you alone.
Yeah.
when you're
follows
thinking
you around
about things. Yeah, when you're thinking about things of what what you're about, your values, and what you want to bring, what you feel, what you've learned, really, because ultimately your experience, people will relate to that.
Absolutely.
And when you've got that enmeshed in your business, you're coming from that place, it's going to have that element of connection.
Yeah, it's coded, isn't it?
Yeah, they're gonna feel that this is something that might be useful to me.
Yeah.
I recognise it. Our humanness is going to be recognised. Is going to be connected. Oh, I know what she's talking. Yeah, I know what she's talking about. I feel that sometimes, and so when that happens, that's valuable to people. It really is.
I think that leads us really nicely onto a lot of that we share so many passions and kind of similar ways to think of it. Tell me a little bit about your framework that you use with your clients, because I know this is something, years of your work has been poured into this incredible framework. So just tell us a little bit about that.
So what I've found to be true through scientific research, I'm not a neuroscientist, I'm not a scientist, so I always have to translate things into my own simple language, and that's how I convey it to others. But that's my style, and
that's your magic.
A lot of people will relate to that.
Absolutely.
So that is, I've forgotten the question.
Your framework. You're going to tell us about your framework.
Of course,
this is the culmination, isn't it, of all your work, all of this experience, all of this expertise. You've brought it together into this framework. So I'm really interested to just tell us a little bit about it and how you use it in your work.
Sure. So this is the solid ground that I guess I've come to know to be true.
Yeah.
So the psychological aspects of understanding what people struggle with,
yeah.
from talking to people over the years, and what helps them, what holds them back, what helps them move forward, breaking down those barriers
yeah.
to help them move towards a more, to be less anxious
yeah.
and less depressed and all those things.
Or to create change for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. So I talk about the 6 pillars of living medicine, which I found no matter which way I look, whether it be menopause, whether it be women in their 40s and 50s,
yeah.
whether it be men and chronic, all aspects of chronic illness. What I've found is the 6 pillars support all the other stuff.
Yeah.
They make the psychological growth, the hard work,
yeah.
easier.
Okay.
So the 6 pillars are reducing stress,
yeah.
exercise, nutrition, sleep, addictive substances, reducing those, and healthy relationships.
Yeah.
So across any study, wherever you look, if we can incorporate those, and it's about building small habits with those things, because we all know that we should eat healthily and exercise, that's not news.
It sounds so simple on paper, doesn't it?
It really does. But what I've come to learn is that each pillar helps the other.
Yeah.
If we're trying to eat healthily, but we're not sleeping very well,
or going down the pub and having 15 pints at the weekend.
Yeah. One's going to impact the other.
Exactly.
If we're eating well and going to the gym, they're going to work in unison. They're going to help each other, So healthy relationships, we know that if we have a few people in our corner where we really feel supported and heard, understood, validated, all those lovely things, we're far more likely to succeed.
Yeah.
So these are the pillars that make everything else easier. So in the therapy world and the well-being world, we talk a lot about the whether it's a fitness coach or nutrition, we talk about them in isolation almost. Whereas I guess what I found is, and from my own experience actually as well, through perimenopause, that was no joke. That I had to have 10 weeks off work.
Wow.
And just could not get off the sofa. Really,
and I think that's so powerful for you to share that. I think so many women listening to that will feel so validated just hearing you openly say that, because again, there's still so much shame around it, isn't there? So I think that's really, thank you for sharing that part of your journey, because I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, and it does feel horrible because culturally, I'm second generation Irish. To be off work, you don't miss work unless you're dead. Really.
Unless your legs hanging off.
So it was awful. And I know that you and I have talked about this before, where that middle bit in growth where there's nothing happening
makes you confront an awful lot of things about yourself, doesn't it? Right. So that time off would have made you confront quite a lot of these beliefs that you were holding, and really think about, okay, well, why? What does this mean? What am I making it mean?
And I had therapy at the time, and I can remember my therapist saying, you need to accept that you're not well and be not well. I was like, what? I don't want to be not well. I want to be back at work, So it's about
supporting yourself across all of these pillars, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's very much about my personal journey. Which then, when I was going through those difficulties with the perimenopause, I started to research.
To practice what you preach.
I started to research the menopause. Davina McCall's book, that was great. And there's a great book by Dr. Lisa Mosconi. They've done, she's a neuroscientist, and they've done loads of studies on, there's a link with Alzheimer's and the menopause, where
your brain chemically changes, doesn't it? That's the thing.
Yeah, and if we're not getting good sleep, there's amyloid plaques that build up in the brain. They're not. When we're asleep, the brain does a kind of a clean-up job.
Yeah.
And there's loads of studies around what helps the menopause, and it's the 6 pillars. So if we can incorporate them, we're on solid ground.
Yeah, absolutely.
To then be able to, our resilience levels are high.
Exactly. And then we're more likely to be able to create change for ourselves, or cope with the confronting nature that change often brings with it. Exactly.
You bet.
Okay, so I think to wrap us up, this is a really interesting one, and hopefully you can give our listeners some good tips around this. So how do you think, or what tips would you give somebody around the difference between creating lasting change and temporary motivation? Because I think they're tricky things, aren't they? Is that we can take actions enough to create a little bit of change, but it's not going to stick. So what do you think is the difference and the nuance between creating lasting change in your life?
I think it's really interesting that when we go through different stages in life, we'll often have other things that will show up in our life to kind of almost demonstrate what's going on internally. Because this one is a tricky one for me, and something that I have worked on and continue to do so, because when I only just started running last year, because I was in that camp where I'm not a runner. I used to look at people running and they would be breathing normally, and I think, how on earth are you doing that?
I saw you ran 18 kilometres the weekend, didn't you?
It's
amazing.
Absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, in a year.
But and my sister's really helped me with that. She did a half marathon before years ago. So, but the key is to start out really slow.
Okay.
And to have that kind of vibe or that mindset that, okay, we're just going to put one foot in front of the other, and we're going to keep moving. And I think that is really the attitude that's helped me, and something that I try to do more of, rather than being super, we listen to a talk and we're like, oh Monday, here we go, we're gonna do it this time.
This time.
And then it's kind of, there's a burst of energy that goes into it. Yeah. And that will only get us so far. For one, it's burning a lot of energy. Yeah. So I think the attitude of a chip away at it approach, play the long game. Motivation is not, and it's not going to come every day. It's not going to be there. So you just have to keep turning up. Yeah,
it's almost making it a habit rather than relying on the motivation, because as you say, a lot of the time the motivation isn't there. Yeah. But it's about that habit stacking, isn't it? And I think a point that you made really beautifully there is that it isn't a destination, so you've done all this work running and you've got better, but if you stopped today, you wouldn't expect in 12 months from now to go out and run 18 kilometres straight away, right? Yeah. Because, and I think that's the thing, is in order to create lasting change, I think it's almost like we do this thing, we're like, right, tick, done, I can take my foot off the gas now. But a lot of the time that isn't the case, isn't it? And that is why sometimes we create change, but then we fall back into old habits and patterns, is because it isn't an established change, or we've stopped chipping away at it, we've stopped making the effort.
Absolutely. And the thing that kept me going, and still does really, is, when you say that, if you think of 12 months time, I ain't going back to the sofa for 10 weeks. So that kind of keeps me going. If I don't keep turning up, just gradually chipping away at things, just keep things going, what's that going to look like in 12 months? I'm not, we lose a lot of muscle mass when we get into our 40s and 50s. We get weaker, our mobility, all those types of things. So this is lifestyle stuff in order to keep us strong going forward. So that keeps me going to look at the end game, and the alternative for me is just not an option.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's a really nice point around, it's very easy to get kind of in the moment, isn't it? I feel quite suffocated and like you can't see past, the end of your nose because you're just in survival. Whereas actually zooming out and keeping that bigger picture in mind, that bigger vision, whatever it is, if it's fitness, if it's life, if it's health, if it's business, if it's financial, whatever it is, that future-scaping and that bigger picture is giving you something to create movement towards, isn't it?
And just to circle back with the survival stuff as well, we are programmed to take the easy route and to conserve energy. So if we ask ourselves, do I feel like going to the gym? The answer is probably going to be no. Or do I feel like going running? The answer is probably going to be no, because our survival instincts will say, sit on the sofa, conserve your energy.
Yeah, you're right. It is.
You know, do what's ever quickest, do that microwave meal. We are programmed that way. It's not that we're lazy. That's what we're supposed to do according to our survival system. So it's about asking, I don't feel like doing it, but what will I feel after?
What's the cost of not?
Yeah, exactly. And the way I see it is I'm awake about 110 hours a week, and I exercise about 5 of those.
When you put it into perspective.
The other 105 hours, I'm going to benefit from that 5, not only this week, but in the long run as well.
I think it's and I talk about this a lot with my clients, it's really interesting of when they're thinking about putting their prices up or saying yes to something or saying no to something, whatever it is, they'll always say, but so what's it gonna, what am I gonna gain? Like, what am I going to gain by this? So if I say yes to that, even though it's £200 less than it should be, I'm going to gain £300, you know? So they're focused on what they're going to gain from the situation, whereas I always reframe it and say, okay, well, now we've looked at what you're going to gain, let's look at what the cost of making that decision could be. And sometimes they just don't think about it from that, and vice versa. If they're always thinking about what's this going to cost me, reframe it and say, okay, well, this is what it's going to cost you, but what are you going to gain from that? What are the opportunities? So I think we need both sides, don't we? You know? Yeah,
definitely. Motivation, if you want to think about it that way, then I would think about playing the long game. If that's what you need to be motivated. You know, my mum really struggled with her health, and that was really tough to watch, actually. The last few years of her life, it was brutal, and a lot of people go through that, you know. So health is, you know, that motivates me. I don't want my family to witness that. And I don't want to go through that, you know. So and there are no guarantees, you know. People could, you know, illnesses. We that's something we can't control. But I'm certainly going to do everything I can. To try and keep well for as long as possible.
I think that's a nice kind of place for us to bring things to a close. Is that in a lot of ways, change is inevitable in our lives. And a lot of the time, that change is often outside of our control. So I think all of the things that we've talked about today around change, around building resilience, you know, getting more comfortable with being uncomfortable, trusting ourselves and our ability to navigate situations, our ability to problem solve. You know, I've realised over the years, like, I'm far better under pressure than I thought I was, because I now put myself in more high-pressured situations. But again, I say this to my clients all the time, where do you ever allow yourself to be your best? Where do you ever allow yourself to find out these things about you? If you're constantly playing safe, if you're constantly staying in your comfort zone, you're never going to learn what you're capable of doing, right?
Yeah, that's really true.
So I think that's, So thank you so much. I think this is such a nuanced subject. And I've loved diving into it with you. I think we could just chat all day. But hopefully our viewers and our listeners have got loads from that, loads to go away and think about. We've sown some seeds. But thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.